Remember those hilarious faces from Are You Being Served? They made the world laugh, but their real lives were anything but funny. Behind the jokes lay heartbreak, scandals, and tragedies that no sitcom script could ever capture. Today, we uncover what really happened to each of them, and why their endings still shock fans even now. John Inman as Mr. Humphreys. You could hear him before you saw him. The voice, the sparkle, that famous "I'm free," bouncing through the aisles of Grace Brothers. Mr. Humphreys was outrageous, elegant, and impossible to forget. But behind the sequins and smiles, John Inman's life was stitched together with loneliness and the price of being different in a world that didn't always laugh with you. He didn't start in fame, he started in shop windows. Inman once dressed mannequins in a men's store, dreaming of the stage while dusting suits. For years, he lived off cheap tea and sandwiches, touring smoky seaside theaters, often sharing dressing rooms the size of broom closets. Rejections came constantly. Too odd, too effeminate, too niche. He nearly gave up acting twice until a small BBC pilot called Are You Being Served? Finally gave him the space to be himself. But success can be cruel. Mr. Humphreys became both a sensation and a target. Activists accused him of reinforcing stereotypes, and producers tried to tame his flamboyance. John loved the joy his character brought, but privately he battled shame, pressure, and self-doubt. He drank heavily to cope with anxiety and loneliness, telling friends that applause was a drug stronger than any whiskey. By the 1990s, health problems and emotional fatigue began to consume him. Still, he kept performing, in grace and favor, in pantomime, in endless tours of bedside manners and salad days. Even when hepatitis A left him frail and weak, he refused to cancel shows. The man who made millions laugh could barely stand, yet he kept going, saying quietly, "They came to see Mr. Humphreys. I can't let him die before I do." John Inman played Mr. Humphreys in Are You Being Served? From 1972 to 1985, when he was 37 years old. He passed away on March 8, 2007, aged 71, from complications of hepatitis A. His estimated net worth was around $4 million, a small treasure earned from a life that began in shop windows and ended in spotlights. Mollie Sugden as Mrs. Slocum. If you've ever laughed at Mrs. Slocum's pastel hair or her scandalous jokes about her cat, you've met one of Britain's sharpest comic creations. She wasn't just funny, she was fearless. She ruled the ladies' department like a queen with curlers and claws. But off camera, Mollie Sugden's road to fame was paved with humiliation. She'd been rejected by drama schools for her accent and told she'd never fit television. In her early years, she worked in repertory theater for pennies, performing double shifts and sleeping in cold dressing rooms. While others her age found stability, Mollie scraped through every paycheck, praying someone would finally see her worth. Her first steady work came in Hugh and I, and later in The Liverbirds, where her comedic instincts finally caught attention. Yet even after success, she carried old wounds, constantly fearing she'd be forgotten. Between tapings, she chain-smoked to calm her nerves, her laughter masking deep anxiety. Behind the bright wigs, Mollie battled emphysema and heart problems, forcing herself through filming even when she could barely breathe. Mollie Sugden played Mrs. Slocum in Are You Being Served? From 1972 to 1985, when she was 50 years old. She passed away on July 1, 2009, aged 86, after years of heart and lung illness. Her estimated net worth was around $5 million. Frank Thornton as Captain Peacock. He walked the floor of Grace Brothers like a general in a battlefield of blouses. Proud, proper, and slightly pompous. Captain Peacock's elegance was pure theater. But for Frank Thornton, it was also armor. Long before television fame, Frank fought a real war. As a Royal Air Force officer in World War II, he witnessed horrors that haunted him for life. When peace returned, he buried those memories beneath scripts and stage lights. The stage became therapy but also torment. He worked non-stop in theater troupes, barely earning enough to survive, often walking miles to save bus fare between auditions. When Are You Being Served? Came calling. He was 51 and tired, too experienced to hope, too proud to quit. The show changed his life overnight. Yet success brought its own ghosts. Thornton longed to be taken seriously as a dramatic actor, but comedy trapped him. That quiet frustration followed him for decades. At night, he barely slept. In interviews, he hinted that the BBC didn't trust him. Frank Thornton played Captain Peacock in Are You Being Served? From 1972 to 1985, at 51 years old, and later reprised the role in Grace and Favor from 1992 to 1993. He passed away peacefully on March 16, 2013, aged 92, leaving behind a legacy of precision, poise, and a net worth of about $6 million. Wendy Richard as Miss Brahms. Miss Brahms was sharp, stylish, and no one's fool. A working-class girl with big hair and even bigger dreams. Her Cockney charm gave Grace Brothers its heartbeat. But Wendy Richard carried scars far deeper than her character ever showed. Her childhood was shaped by tragedy. At just 11, she found her father after he'd taken his own life, a trauma that shadowed her forever. She buried her pain in performance, clawing her way through the brutal world of auditions and rejection. Working at Fortnum and Mason to pay for drama school, she was fired for telling a customer that a coat didn't suit her. That honesty, both her greatest strength and her downfall, would follow her all her life. When Are You Being Served? Came along, it gave Wendy her first real home. But fame didn't fix the cracks. By the 1980s, as she transitioned into EastEnders, she battled alcoholism and mood swings. Tabloids painted her as difficult, and directors complained about her outbursts. What they didn't know was that her drinking hid decades of suppressed grief and exhaustion from a career spent proving she was more than just a pretty Cockney voice. Her later years were marked by both triumph and heartbreak. As Pauline Fowler in EastEnders, she became one of Britain's most beloved and most burdened women on screen. Off-screen, cancer returned again and again. When she refused chemotherapy in 2008, tabloids called her reckless. In truth, she was just tired. "I've had enough hospitals," she told a friend. "I want to live my way and die my way." Wendy Richard played Miss Brahms in Are You Being Served? From 1972 to 1985, when she was 29 years old, and later starred in EastEnders for over 2 decades. She passed away on February 26, 2009, aged 65, after a long fight with breast cancer. Her net worth at the time of her death was estimated at $8 million. But her true legacy lives in every woman who's ever faced the world with lipstick, grit, and a laugh through tears. Arthur English as Mr. Harmon. Every store needs a handyman, and Mr. Harmon was Grace Brothers' lovable rogue. Cheeky, warm-hearted, and always ready with a joke that could cut tension like a spanner through butter. But for Arthur English, the laughter often stopped the moment the cameras did. Arthur's rise came late and hard. A former market stall comedian, he hustled through post-war London clubs, sleeping in cheap lodgings and surviving on beer and chips. He'd perform 6 shows a night just to make enough for breakfast. By the time he reached television, he'd already spent decades fighting for the microphone, even when agents told him his act belonged to a dead music hall era. Then came Are You Being Served? And suddenly Arthur English was reborn. His Mr. Harmon, the working-class everyman among upper-class eccentrics, became a fan favorite. Yet success came wrapped in sadness. The death of his wife, Ivy, in 1975 shattered him. He turned to drink, sometimes showing up on set unsteady, but always charming enough to make the crew forgive him. In the late 70s and 80s, Arthur's career mixed triumph and turmoil, Follyfoot, the ghosts of Motley Hall, in sickness and in health. But his private life crumbled. Chronic emphysema stole his breath, forcing him into a care home, where he passed the days with drafts and canaries. Arthur English joined Are You Being Served? In 1976 at 57 years old and stayed until the show's end in 1985. He passed away on April 16, 1995, aged 75, from emphysema. His net worth was about $2 million, earned through a lifetime of making Britain smile. Nicholas Smith as Mr. Rumbold. He wasn't the boss anyone feared, he was the boss everyone pitied. Mr. Rumbold stood as the perfect comic symbol of British bureaucracy. Well-meaning, bewildered, and forever out of his depth. Yet behind that gentle buffoonery, Nicholas Smith was far more serious than his on-screen alter ego. Before Grace Brothers, Smith fought tooth and nail for recognition. He spent the 1960s drifting through one-line roles on Doctor Who, The Avengers, and Z-Cars, constantly begging directors for just a few more words. Money was tight. He sometimes took extra work as an usher or stagehand to keep the rent paid. Each rejection carved deeper into his confidence. His dream had been Shakespeare and musical theater, not punchlines and pratfalls. When are you being served? Arrived, it should have felt like salvation. Instead, it felt like surrender. Smith loved his castmates, but he quietly loathed the idea that audiences knew him only as jug ears. He'd hoped for drama, not cheap laughter. As John Inman's fame soared, jealousy crept in. In later years, that bitterness curdled into paranoia. After a minor burglary in the 90s, he surrounded his home with 16 security cameras and refused press interviews. Friends said he feared being forgotten or mocked. Even his health began to slip, his memory fading, his once powerful voice reduced to whispers. His last major film, Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, earned him an Annie Award nomination. Proof that the talent he feared was wasted had never really gone. Nicholas Smith played Mr. Rumbold in Are You Being Served? From 1972 to 1985, when he was 38 years old. He passed away on December 6, 2015, aged 81, after a fall at his home in Sutton, London. His estimated net worth was about $3 million, modest, but enough to mark a career that endured long after the laughter faded. He was the last surviving member of the original cast.